Tynan. Replacing just a few key negative habits with a few positive habits can easily be the difference between being mostly unhappy and being happy almost all the time. Tynan.
Here we are, Jessica and Darren Salquist coming at you.
With next level.
Good vibes only.
That's right.
So today we're going to be talking about habits, you guys. We're going to be doing a workshop here pretty soon. And by the time this is dropped, I think the workshop will already be completed. But we're going to share some ideas and thoughts that we're going to be sharing in our workshop. And we're going to hopefully share some ideas that you guys will be able to take away from this and maybe implement into your life as soon as you get done with listening to this podcast.
That's right. Like create a habit. And so let's start with breaking down that quote a little bit.
Yeah. Replacing just a few key negative habits with a few positive habits can easily be the difference, right? Making those changes. And it's not necessarily deleting those habits, but it's replacing those negative habits and replacing them with something that is going to move you closer in the direction that you want to go. And we all have those. We're never going to be perfect at it. We're going to be working at a lot of different things that we do, and 95% of what we do is habitual. And so we're going to break this down. This might allow us to take a closer look into our lives and some of the things that we do that we don't even think about, that just run on that autopilot, like brushing our teeth. Maybe we get in the shower at a certain time, maybe our morning routine where we're making coffee and breakfast, and what does that look like? Maybe we're hitting that snooze button pretty consistently in the morning. You know, we're constantly waking up and just hitting that snooze. And those could be those negative habits. But we're going to look at some of those things today and talk about some different ideas and go from there.
And I just want to ask everybody, if you can really just think about, would you rather be mostly unhappy versus happy almost all the time? Because we know happy 24/7, not realistic. We want to rub it against reality. But if you can be like mostly happy, that sounds pretty good. So I hope everybody chooses mostly happy. And with that secret ingredient is building habits. So let's jump into what is a habit.
Yeah. And we're sharing some different ideas. And this one idea we're going to be sharing is by Superhuman by Habit by a gentleman named Tynan. And what he says a habit is an outfit a nun wears.
That's right. That's it.
That's
good.
it. There you go. There's a habit.
What'd you get? What's your lessons learned?
But it's also an action that you take on a repeated basis with little or no required effort or thought. The power of habit lies in the second part of that definition, the bit about no required effort or thought. And that's the goal. That's the trick of this thing, right? Just these habits that we do on a routine basis that are guiding us in the direction, that are moving us in the direction that we want to go. But those habits can also be those things that are moving us in a direction that we don't want to go. And that could be staying up late watching TV. That could be staying up late on our social media, not putting those phones away. That's interrupting our sleep. And those are habits. Those are things that we do.
And a habit is something that does not deplete your willpower. Once it becomes a habit, it therefore becomes something, like Darren said, autopilot, something that you're doing already. So really, really thinking about the definition of a habit is every morning I wake up, I'm brushing my teeth, right? Every night when I go to bed, I am journaling. It's a habit. Like I will look for my journal. It's something that's innate within me that I'm just doing no matter what. I don't have to put a lot of effort into it, but it takes a while to actually create that. And later we'll talk about old versus new habits, which is kind of a cool little concept. But that's something that we definitely want to be able to say is a habit is something that it's not taking a lot of willpower, but we got to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then willpower is really used on those things that we don't want to do, right? The willpower, we use that willpower to create change. And sometimes that change is very hard. So that's where that willpower shows up. And this, I think, where if you really dive into a habit that you're looking to bring into your life or a habit that you're looking to change is, number one, why? What benefit is it going to bring by me changing this habit? And so one of the things that I'm going to be looking at, and this is what I've been talking about for a little bit, is for 2025. I mean, I know we're in September of 2024 right now, but I'm already thinking about 2025 as what do I want 2025 to look like for me? And one of the things that I'm working on is my nutrition and becoming a healthy eater. And so it's not what I'm looking for is like, what is the outcome that I'm looking for? My goal's on an outcome based, where if I want to decrease weight or I want to look a certain way. But my habit and my goal that I'm setting up is really about identity. My identity that I want to create for myself for 2025 is to be a healthy eater, somebody that eats healthy. And also having that, for me, what I'm looking for right now is that physique, that body of a, man, that looks like somebody that really focuses on his nutrition and is eating well.
Yeah.
And that's just creating that identity. And I think that's also something we can look at as we go into this is about what is that habit or goal when we set these, are we focused on the outcome? Like the outcome, again, if I want to just decrease weight, I'm focused on the outcome.
That's right.
I'm not focusing on what that identity is, or I'm not focused on what it's going to take. I'm just focused only on the outcome.
So your repeated beingness, what are you doing over and over and over to become who you are? Who do you want to become? And that is your identity. So Darren mentioned, hey, I'm going to be a healthy eater. I eat healthy, right? So reframing that identity is I'm going to have a healthy meal. Like I'm going to eat healthy tonight for dinner versus I make healthy decisions. I am a healthy eater. Just like in smoking, if somebody says, hey, do you want a cigarette? And you say, oh, and you've been struggling with trying to quit smoking and you're like, oh, no, not right now. I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. So it is that piece of it that it is the more that you say it, the more that you practice it, you become that. So repeated beingness. Every time you tell someone, I am not a smoker, then you become a non-smoker. I'm not having one right now. I'm trying to quit, blah, blah, going into the whole rigmarole of trying to explain your way out of something, just like alcohol. Hey, you go to a social event and somebody's like, hey, how about a drink? And you're like, oh no, I don't drink. Or just finding a way to that identity of, if you're someone that works out, I'm an athlete. I'm a healthy, I have a healthy body, instead of saying, oh, I work out once a week, just trying to really find that identity that's going to actually help you really solidify the identity to yourself, because that is what we're talking about is the habit, is that it just becomes second nature. When that comes out of your mouth and you don't have to think about what you need to say anymore, that becomes your identity, and that becomes the habit of you stating, that's who you are. That's who I am. Those I am statements are super powerful.
Yeah. I mean, just like right now, Jess and I doing this podcast, we could say we are podcasters. Why?
We are.
Because we do a podcast.
Right?
Right? We're heroic coaches. Why? Because we went through a course, we got certified, and we have that title of heroic coach and facilitator as well, going through that certification. And so you have the power to change your beliefs about yourself. And that's where it's super important. We've talked about words and how to utilize those words and to utilize those to the best of your ability. Again, what you're speaking, your mind is taking in, right? You are creating your own world that you live in. And that's what, again, whatever you're thinking about right now or what you do for your work, that's why I think it's hard when people retire from being a nurse or a doctor, maybe whatever different type of role that we're in, a social worker, that a lot of times individuals have a hard time retiring from that role because that has been their identity for so long, because that's what they've been doing. And they don't see themselves as anything else except for that role that they've played. But this is the power, again, that you have. Again, whatever your beliefs are, you can change that belief and guide yourself and create your own identity and go into the direction that you want to go. And by doing that is by your actions, by your habits, those things that you do daily. So kind of going into that, that's also where we're looking at identities. Jess, is there something else you wanted to talk about?
Just the fact that, we talk about it a lot. It's with a lot of, development concept, is that consistency part of it. Who do you want to become? It's for you, your identity. And I was just going to say a comment to like your last thing about when we retire and change, our whole life with working and doing a job forever and then deciding we're retiring. And like we should create an actual transition course for people that are transitioning from retirement to the rest of their life, right? And looking at it in a different way, because I think there is a whole definition and identity around retirement. And people are not taking the time to really find out again, who am I? What's my identity? What makes me happy? If I allow the identity of my job and work to define me as who I am, that's going to make me unhappy. Even if I love my job, right? Because that's not always who I possibly am, but making sure that, especially if you're not in love with your job and that has defined you and that is your identity, really truly finding things that really make you happy, that bring you joy, and figuring out, what do I really want? You know, what's important to me? And that's one of the factors that a lot of people are missing is, what do I want? They don't know. They've had something in their life leading them, telling them what to do every single day for 20, 30, 40 years and had that structure. And so my point is that consistency is everything. So if you're not taking care of yourself, figuring out what drives you, what your interests are, what your true, internal, authentic, repeated beingness is, that identity, who you are and who you truly want to be, then that's something that we want to work on, is those habits that are going to create the identity of who you want to be, not who you are supposed to be or who somebody else is telling you to be.
Yeah. And, you know, whatever role that you're playing right now, that's not your purpose. I mean, that's what we talked about. That's your mission, right? The purpose in life is all about being that best version of you, you showing up for your true potential and who you truly are capable of being. And whatever role you're playing, or whatever role that you're in, that you're doing for a career right now, that's exactly what it is. It's a role, or that's your mission at this current moment, but that's not your purpose. This purpose is all about, it's a created thing, I want to say. Like, it's a man-made position. Or being a mother, being a father, that's a good role. That's a good purpose. And to be that great father, that great mother, a great brother or sister, a great uncle or an aunt, that's about how you're showing up and what are you bringing. And that's also your identity. That's part of your identity, is how you show up into that situation, into that role that you're in at that moment. As we talked about, to know the ultimate game is how to know the role and how to play it well. And that's what I think the identity is all about. What identity are you showing up with, and how are you, and who do you want to become, and how do you want to be seen?
That's right. What do you want?
You. Where we're going to go next? What do you want to jump into?
Well, we can either go into the 4 laws, or we can do a little old new habit. I like the old new habit.
Yeah, so the 4 laws of behavior change is from James Clear, and he kind of talks about that. There is a simple set of rules that you can use to build those better habits. And the first rule is to make it obvious. The second is to make it attractive. The third is make it easy. And the fourth is make it satisfying. So let's talk about that first one, is make it obvious.
Yeah. So these rules that Darren are talking about, like making it obvious, is something like you want it to be like right in your face, right? What's important to you? How are you going to create the habit? What's your identity, repeated beingness? And so we want to have a cue that's super obvious. And that might just be like when my alarm goes off, right? That's happening every morning. Again, like practicing not hitting snooze, but getting up or putting your phone somewhere else that you can't actually reach it and you're going to have to get up to go get it, but make it obvious. So the other parts, some of the things that I've used to make it super obvious is when I did drink coffee every morning, like I would say, you will meditate before you drink coffee, because coffee was happening. Like that, no doubt that was a habit. It was happening, not so much anymore. But before I went to grab that cup of coffee, there was meditation occurring. And I just knew that would happen. So that became my habit. Habits change, right? I ex-nate on the coffee. So therefore I had to create something else to work for it. But you're making it super, super obvious, a cue that you'll trip over it. It's a sound. It's something that's going to trigger you and cue you that you have a next process, a next step, a habit that you want to do, especially when you're trying to install something.
Yeah, and that's that cue, same thing, trigger or a prompt, something that's going to move you in that direction that you want to go. And then if we want to make it attractive, that would be the second law, to make it attractive. So what is it about that goal that you're setting for yourself is going to entice you, to move you in that direction? That could be, again, that identity change. Is who do you want to become? And is that attractive enough for you to really put the effort into that, to move you in the direction that you want to go, to create this new version of you, to create this different identity?
And making,
that identity, like what Jessica was talking about, by making it obvious. Again, if you want to do meditation in the morning, do you have a pillow, or do you have some type of trigger or cue that you're going to do that? And then what is the attraction to that afterwards? About, I'm going to be more calm. I'm going to give myself some guidance. It's going to give me direction that you know your why.
Yeah, make it desirable. Like if you have a favorite place that you like to sit in the morning to drink your coffee, tea, and the sun comes up and it's shining on your face, and you love that, making it desirable. Like what will you do right before that, before you can bask in the sun at that moment, right? And just like Darren said, if you're having that cup of coffee or tea, what are you going to do right before it so that it's very desirable for you, that it basically you start relating that happy feeling of being able to have the coffee, tea, or another activity that can cue you, that you will correlate it to that same feeling.
Yeah. The third law is going to be making it easy. So what would be a way to make something very easy, so simple that the only way that you're not going to do it is by simply making that choice that you're not going to do it today? And so one of the things that I have been practicing is journaling. And journaling can be challenging. We're all in the very beginning. We're doing it daily, and then all of a sudden we start to slip off. But what I've done to make it easy and simple, to downscale it to the very minimal way so I don't miss it, is simply writing the date. That's my goal. To journal is to write the date in the book. And if I've written the date, boom, I've done it. And the goal is building that consistency, right? This is also something when we talk about doing these habits and creating something, is consistency, not missing. And we're going to miss now and then. And that's okay to do, where if you miss once, it's going to happen. But we don't miss twice.
Don't want to miss twice.
And that's what they talk about in Superhuman by Habit. Tynan, he calls that habit suicide.
Yeah.
When you miss something twice, because it's already a lot of effort to build that consistency. And by missing it once, you might remove, maybe he kind of talks about like 5% of that. You just lost that effort and that ability, that consistency about doing it. But if you miss it twice, it jumps up to 43%. And then heaven forbid you miss it 3 times. It's just going to get knocked off.
Yeah.
And so the goal is never to skip. It's okay to miss, but never skip twice.
And it happens. It totally happens. But that's where, again, we talked about willpower. It comes in when it's something you don't really want to do. So it's a great time to reflect too. Is this something really important to me?
Yeah.
Is this going to make the biggest impact in my life? And is this something that I want to spend time on to do every morning or evening at this time? Or do I want to replace it with something else? So making it easy. And you remind me of like the floor ceiling conversation we've had before.
Yeah.
Is your floor is the point of making it super easy. So like Darren said, writing the date. If he's going to journal, his floor is writing a date. His ceiling is, say, spending a minute to 5 minutes, writing. For me, meditation, my floor would be like doing some box breathing, at least 3 rounds of 5, 5, 5, 5. Breathing in, holding for 5, out for 5, holding for 5. Like I'll do that for 3 rounds, and that's my floor. But I feel good because I did it, right? It's something that I have committed and promised to myself that it'll become a habit for my morning and my evening protocols. And it's really a 5-second box breath, So I feel like I win, and I don't beat myself up. And I don't need willpower for that because it's become a habit. So it was easy.
Yeah. And the fourth law is make it satisfying. So you're going to give yourself that immediate reward after doing that new habit. And that could be simply saying, that's like me. You get done meditating for 1 minute, or you get done journaling for just writing the date in that journal. That's just like me. You're going to celebrate that because that's who you are working on becoming, somebody that journals and finding the benefit. Again, you got to know the benefit to that new habit that you are looking to install. Because if the benefit is not strong enough for you, if you don't really know your why, and then you're not going to continue to do it. And that's where we'll talk about maybe a different type of podcast of putting it on that scale, on a scale of 1 to 10. If it's very low on that scale, you're not going to do it. I think actually we talked about that last time on the behavioral map. Mm-hmm. And where does it sit in that behavioral map? And so creating that identity, making it satisfying, maybe even creating a habit tracker that you are going to put a check mark by every day? Is that something you've ever done, Jess?
Yeah, we used to talk about pulling out a calendar. And when you're trying to install one habit, it's great to have a visual, right? At the end of the day, you just like put an X in the date. We have a whiteboard calendar that we used to play around with for installing a habit. And that's something that, put it on there, write the habit on there, and then basically every day put an X and say, that's like me, or do a nice like fist pump in the air like Darren does. And I have incorporated myself. When you get to a top of a hill or a mountain, you put your hands up in the air and you're like, yeah, Rocky, like celebrate. So it does make a difference to create a positive correlation in your brain to what you're doing, because you're going to want to do it more. So don't just like do something and just move on to the next thing. I think we get so tied into just moving on to the next, and not being completely present, especially when we do something, we're incorporating a habit. So give yourself that moment to just be like, yeah, that's like me. I got this. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm excited for tomorrow. I can't wait to do this tomorrow. Find your correlation between the joy and happiness that it's bringing you. And like we continue to say, if it's not bringing you joy, what the heck are you doing it for?
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to do things like our next podcast, we're going to be talking about embrace the suck. Doesn't mean that we don't want to do it, but you're going to do things that are going to suck sometimes. Sometimes you have obligation. Sometimes it's just part of your job. You're going to do it, but you're going to find something within it and the purpose or mission or the joy of why you're actually doing it, and find the gratitude. So make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. Don't those all sound like really great things?
I like it. And it also works in reverse. When you're looking to replace a habit, a bad habit, or something that's not working for you, right? When you think about something that you are looking to change, what you want to do with that first law is we're going to talk about make it invisible versus make it obvious. And so with me around sweets in the house, right? That was something that I always would go to the store especially when I start doing the shopping. I might buy a little treat in there. We'd have this drawer that we'd put certain things in. And whenever I got that craving, I would go to that drawer. And that was one way to do it. Another way to not make it so obvious or make it invisible is that on your cabinets. Instead of having that treat, when you open the cabinet and it's looking at you at eye level, that you're going to put it on the top shelf. So it's not right there in front of you. And actually, if you really want to get it, then you got to maybe break out the step stool, depending on how tall you are. For me, I need the step stool to get to that top shelf. And so that was one way that I could make it invisible.
Or just don't buy it.
And that was the other. Use your willpower
really
at the store.
Invisible.
That's the big thing, right?
Don't
buy
go
it.
down the center aisles. So how do you make it unattractive then?
So making it unattractive is, again, you got to reframe that mindset. So think about the benefits. Why, again, am I doing it? So one thing I'm working on right now is my nutrition, working towards 2025 and not buying certain foods. The other day we were at the grocery store and I was going to get some ice cream. I had that craving and I had to start looking at ways of making it unattractive. One way I looked at it was, well, it's 6 p.m. in the evening. By the time I get home and I finish dinner, it's probably going to be a little bit later than I want to have that ice cream, which would probably be around 7:30 p.m. Then I'm thinking, wow, do I really want to put that much sugar into my body before I go to sleep? And I looked at the ingredients. I looked at how many grams of sugar were in that pint of ice cream.
Too many.
63 grams of sugar. And that helped me say no. I put it back in the refrigerator or the freezer at the grocery store, and I walked away from it, and I said, that's just like me.
And therefore, you brought in your identity too. And I think that's important, is that's not my identity.
Yeah.
That's not my identity. Therefore, that's a no. So how do you make it difficult?
And then making it difficult to increase that friction. Making it difficult is, again, not buying it, right? If I don't have it in the house and I really have that craving, how am I going to get it?
I'm going
to have to get in the car. And I've done that before. Jessica's been out of town. I've got the cravings. There's nothing in the house because I'm like, oh, this is awesome. My strategy is working. The tool is working. I get to make that decision now. Do I get to get into the car and go buy that treat that I want? And one time, I get in the car. We have a solar-powered gate, and I went to open the gate, and guess what? The battery wasn't charged. And so the gate didn't open. And I was like, I could definitely open the gate manually if I wanted to. but maybe I'll take this as an obstacle, even though obstacles make me stronger. But this gave me that moment to pause and really ask myself, do you want to get out of that car? How bad do you want this treat? Are you going to get out of the car and go open that gate manually? Or do you want to take this as an opportunity to be like, you know what? The gate's not working because you really don't need that ice cream. Or you don't need that treat.
It was a message.
It was a message. And maybe Jessica sabotaged the gate. I don't know when she left.
Well, this is the thing. Tomorrow I go out of town, and maybe you can give us a little update. Maybe we'll do a little YouTube thing or an update where Darren can say live how he's doing and let us know if he's going to sneak any treats while I'm gone.
How many days are you going to be gone?
2 days.
2 days.
I'll be gone for 2
48
days.
hours. Let's see. Let's see.
I'll say, hey, guess what? You're going to do a tracker, and you're going to track your consumption of foods while I'm gone. So then when I come home, you can share them with me. So then that might keep you accountable as one of your tools.
Yeah, and I'm pretty good at it, of saying no. And especially what I'm doing now is like really working it during the week. I'm not really focused on any type of treats during my work week. And I kind of saved that for other days right now. So
okay,
I think I'll be pretty good.
Unsatisfying.
So again, that sugar, that's what I kind of talked about, making it unsatisfying, looking at how many grams of sugar were in that ice cream. And man, I would throw down pints of ice cream all the time back in the days. And it could be 7:30, it could be 8, it could be 8:30 in the evening. I'm not even thinking about the sugar. I'm just thinking about how tasty that Rocky Road ice cream was, or whatever it was type of ice cream that I would get. And then I wouldn't sleep very well.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, why am I not getting good sleep?
I think that's how you make it unsatisfying too, is remember how you felt, how you slept. Like those are the things that help you from making the decision to actually consume something. And not saying you can't ever consume it, but 8, 9 o'clock at night, right before you go to bed, that's probably the worst time to consume high sugar levels. So what is, I wanted to just touch really quick before we kind of wrap up, is on that old and new habits and that superhuman, because I love thinking of our habits are our superpower. And I think that's really important to think about and recall when you're attempting to create a habit, that this is your superpower. Like these are the superpowers that us humans actually have, because we are superhuman. And when we create habits, that becomes something that we do that doesn't, like we said, need willpower, and it becomes automatic. So one of the things that Tynan says is that new habits are things that you do, but old habits are things that you are. And that really resonates with me, because there's a difference between waking up early and being an early riser. So that we were talking about that identity today again, is I am an early riser. I get up early. And that is something that Darren and I, we're going to talk about our embracing the suck in the next podcast, but people said to us when we went and did this event that they're like, man, you guys are disciplined. You guys got done running, a race. You're done at, it was a night run, one of the ones that we did. And we got done at 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
10 o'clock. And we were like, hey, we're going to bed. See ya. Peace out. And they're like, you guys are disciplined. And we're like, no, this is a habit. Yeah. This is a habit. This is just what we do. We're just go to bed as soon as we possibly can. That was way later than we'd wanted to stay up in the first place. So I'm an early riser, or I go to, I'm an early bedtime person. Then I guess that would be too. But he talks about being an early riser, or eating a healthy meal, and being a healthy eater, or I am a healthy person, or I'm just eating a healthy meal. Take that identity in and getting some work done and being a productive person. So if you want to improve yourself permanently, you must develop more habits, which is done by creating new habits and sticking with them until they mature into old habits. So when you think about it, I want an old habit. An old habit is not a bad thing. That just means that you're doing it consistently, and that becomes your identity. And you know that a habit has crossed the threshold when it becomes something that you subconsciously do rather than something that you must think about.
Yeah, and then who are you? Those old habits are who you are. So that was somebody when I was thinking, I'm somebody that eats ice cream late at night. And then here I am, working out, doing all these things at the gym. And even I consider myself somebody that exercises. But how do I take myself to that next level if I'm not doing everything 100%, right? I'm kind of in between. And it's like that healthy eater versus someone that eats healthy. I would have a healthy meal now and then, but I wouldn't say I'm a healthy, I would never claim that I'm a healthy eater. And that's one of the goals that I'm shooting for 2025, is that I would be able to clearly say that I'm a healthy eater because of the choices that I make and having that identity. And by having that identity is going to help when you go to that grocery store. It's going to help when I'm at that bakery. It's going to help going to those places that might intrigue that version of me that I am right now, where I love pastries, and going to that point of, you know what, I'm not somebody that eats pastry. I don't eat pastries any longer. That's that identity change that we talked about very early on, when I'm a smoker and I'm trying to quit, or I don't smoke. It's very clear of what that identity is. And I can clearly say today on this podcast that I am somebody that does not eat donuts. I'm good with not having donuts. I've put that part of my life behind me.
But we have lots of stories to share.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we want to give a shout out. So check out the book by Tynan for Superhuman by Habit. And also James Clear has a wonderful book called Atomic Habits. Those are a couple great books to get some tons of key things to help you develop the habits, and why are they important, and find something in there that's going to resonate with you, that you can help you build those habits.
Yeah, and one last quote from Tynan. He says, habits can only be thought of rationally when you look at from the perspective of years or decades. The benefit of a habit isn't the magnitude of each individual action you take, but the cumulative impact it will have on your life in the long run.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that I've really started moving towards, this place of becoming a healthy eater, because of the foods that I would allow myself to partake in. Is how is that going to benefit me in the long run, versus if I start working on, if I want to have this good quality of life as I level up in age, and or I can definitely wish for that, but if I'm not doing anything to help support that, then when I get to be that future version of myself, I don't want to be looking back like, why didn't you start this? Why didn't you do these things that you said that you do? I am looking now towards the future for that future version of me, that I'm going to be able to look back at myself to say, thank you for stop eating donuts. Thank you for stop eating as many pastries as you were eating. Again, I'm not ready to commit to that 100% with pastries, so I'm kind of being careful with those words.
Just say I'm a healthy eater.
But well, yeah, when I'm not there yet. So, but that's the part I'm going to be getting to, right? And again, when we say these things, this is what I'm going to share with Jess right now. It's not lying to yourself. It's not coming to this place where if I'm not going to say I'm a healthy eater right now, because I'm not. I am working towards that. And so as I go towards that, once I can actually state that I'm a healthy eater, then that's what I'll lock into. But right now, for me, for myself, that's the direction that I'm going. And I want to be able to say that with all certainty, and know that when I'm saying that I'm being honest and truthful for myself. And that's that part where I'm not ready to say that I'm giving up pastries in this moment. But by 2025, I think I'll be there.
All right,
you guys. Thanks for joining us today and talking about habits. And don't forget to take your life to the next level.
Good vibes only.
Peace.